The UK's chief negotiator David Frost has publicly humiliated the European Union's Michel Barnier as we get closer to the June deadline. As you know, June is when both the UK and the EU have to decide whether they want to extend the transition period to the Brexit trade talks. Otherwise, at the end of December, the UK will be leaving with or without a deal. Now, this is according to the UK government and Boris Johnson. This is the position that they have. And some people thought they're just bluffing. The European Union at this point feel like it might not be a bluff. So they're already thinking about the second option, which is to shift the blame and tell the world that we tried our best to make it work. It was the UK's fault, that they don't want to trade. They're little England protectionists. So this is what they want to do. And so we have a lot to mention in this video about this whole row between David Frost and Michel Barnier. But before we start, I've mentioned this in previous videos, but the YouTube algorithm has now changed. So some of you are accidentally unsubscribed from the channel. So make sure every now and then double check to see if you're still subscribed. But also the notification bell next to the subscribe button, you have to click on the actual thing, then click on all, not personalized. Otherwise you won't really get notified when I release my daily videos. Now, let's continue because David Frost has been in charge of the negotiations from the UK side for a while now, and he's been pretty great overall. He's had a strong mandate from Downing Street to keep saying no to the ridiculous demands that the EU come up with, whether it's to have access to our fisheries or to ask for more money or to have the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, to tell us what to do. And Michel Barnier has now said that, we're still waiting to hear from the UK. We don't know what they want. They're not really cooperating in these trade talks. It's not really true because David Frost sent out a tweet with a legal document saying that we've already sent our proposal to the EU. We're waiting for the EU to budge, basically. So this is the Daily Express talking about how the UK Brexit negotiator has put Michel Barnier in his place with a document proving that the EU have already received a full proposal from the UK side. And that's true because Michel Barnier has said until now that the talks have been disappointing, and he's accused Britain of refusing to commit seriously on a number of key points. Now, we're going to talk about these key points in a minute, but this is the tweet that was sent out by David Frost. He said that I would also like to make clear that the EU have from us a full set of draft agreements as set out in my next tweet. These cover the full ground of the negotiations. They set out in legal form the approach explained in our the paper that was published on the 27th of February. Now, this is exactly the whole problem because he's actually published this publicly now and said that it's a legal form. We just need the EU to compromise, and the European Union are not doing this because Michel Barnier was going out before this tweet was sent out, saying that the progress had been disappointing when the second round of negotiations ended in April. And Barnier also said that tangible progress had only been very partially met, adding that the UK did not wish to commit seriously on a number of fundamental points. Now, by this, as we said, he means that he wants the UK to be a non-member, to have all the flaws of being a member, without having any say or getting any benefit. They want the EU to rule over us as usual without being a member, and that's not going to change. So those were agreed by the Prime Minister and his team in the political declaration developed by both sides, which he said must be implemented in a serious, objective, legal way. He has also added that this is not the case now, yet in a number of areas. I regret that and it worries me. Well, fine. It doesn't really matter because this is not what the UK wants. And there are a lot of people who try to take advantage of this whole situation, including the Labour Party and the opposition in general, because as you remember, when they had Jeremy Corbyn as leader, the whole party was divided. Some of them wanted to remain, some of them wanted a second referendum, and the architect behind the second referendum policy was Sir Keir Starmer, who is now the new leader. Now, when he became leader recently, he initially signaled saying that we should move on from this whole Leave Remain debate, but it seems like he's now, that's fine, he's moved on from Remain, but he might be moving on to rejoin, because now he wants to find a way to push the government to extend and delay Brexit again, the Brexit trade talks, and probably to find a way to gather his base to push for rejoining, like the Liberal Democrats. So he's now, this is according to the Express, talking about how Sir Keir Starmer may wait for a potential crunch point later this year before the new Labour Party leader tries to push Boris Johnson into extending the transition period with the European Union beyond the end of December. The problem for Keir Starmer is that he doesn't have enough time. He only has a few weeks left because June is the deadline, and afterwards then both sides have 6 months to prepare for no deal or WTO Brexit, and it's kind of ridiculous at this point. I don't know what he's actually thinking, but according to this article, obviously the former shadow Brexit secretary only took over as leader of the opposition from Jeremy Corbyn last month, but already finds himself battling to reunite the party torn apart by infighting, including its much criticised position on Brexit, the Labour Party's stance on the UK's departure from the Brussels bloc for months went backwards and forwards between a second referendum and an alternative plan to leave the EU altogether. And this obviously caused a lot of confusion amongst the voters, and most of them abandoned the Labour Party because of this. Now, the problem again here is that I don't think Keir Starmer will go for complete rejoin. He might do what Jeremy Corbyn did, which is to propose his softer version of a trade deal, which will be politically aligned to the EU and the ECJ and the customs union as usual. And so he probably wants to push the government to extend this and then get Parliament to come back properly after this whole situation, and then propose his own draft version. And but don't think anyone's going to take him or the Labour Party too seriously, even in Europe, who are desperate. Germany, Angela Merkel, none of these people are taking him seriously, and Angela Merkel is in trouble already. And we've talked about this a number of times because the German economy was already going down before this whole situation, and now they're so desperate that they are begging Brussels. Usually they're the puppet masters, but now they're begging Brussels to somehow find a legal way to extend the transition period without even asking Boris if he wants it or not. And they already clashed with the European Central Bank recently, a few days ago, because the German courts were saying, well, we need to have more say in your decisions. And the central bank said, well, not really. So Germany are trying to find their own ways to get back to the table and the power that they used to have, because on yesterday, the German Foreign Minister, Heiko Maas, described how the talks on a post-transition period trade agreement are necessary as the EU seeks an extension to the transition period, and they know that without a trade deal they can't really survive. Without Britain they can't survive. I don't understand why they can't just compromise and give us a normal trade deal and without political alignment or any customs union agreement. He's told one of the German newspapers that he's worrying that Britain is moving further away from a jointly agreed political declaration on key issues in the negotiations. It's simply not on, because the negotiations are a complete package as it's laid out in the political declaration. So this obsession with the political declaration is actually quite troubling, because we knew that it's not really legally binding. There was a difference between the political declaration and the withdrawal agreement. Withdrawal agreement was the divorce part, and that was properly legal. The political declaration was written by both sides to paint a picture of what the future relationship could look like, but it all depends on the negotiations. And they keep going back to the political declaration. Stop doing that. Their economies are going down. They're already in recession, and the financial sectors are in trouble. Now, according to Reuters, tourism, as expected, is also troubling for the EU because of the borders are being shut, obviously, at this point. They said that they are in grave trouble. Tourism normally brings some 150 billion euros every season from June through August, with some 360 million international arrivals, according to the European Commission. But Europe's external borders are now bound to be shut for any non-essential travel until at least mid-June, an emergency measure to limit the spread of the virus. And yeah, so they know that they need us. And even Dan Hannan, the former Conservative MEP, has written in the Telegraph talking about how the EU and Europe as a continent are currently in intensive care. Good analogy, Dan. They truly are. He's written in this article saying that, as this column has previously argued, there is nothing that the UK and EU could agree next year that they could not agree now. Britain is not asking for a special treatment. All it wants is the sort of basic low-fat trade deal that Brussels has with Canada or South Korea. There are no complicated details, no difficult technicalities. If the EU refuses such a deal, if in clear contradiction of its promises, it now insists on concessions from Britain that it never dreamed of asking from other trading partners. So we know that this is exactly why we're not really equal in the eyes of the EU Commission. And Dan actually continues in this article, talks about how, imagine if it was the other way around. Suppose our negotiators were to insist that a trade deal with the EU was contingent on British access to EU fishing grounds, a British veto over European regulations, and continuing jurisdiction of British judges on the continent. Would anyone think that our stance is reasonable? Would anyone accuse the EU of deliberately collapsing the negotiations? Well, no. And why should we listen to them? You know, it should be a two-way street. And if the UK came up with any sort of demand, and we haven't come up with any demand actually in this whole thing, we are on the defensive part of these talks, which is also kind of stupid because a lot of people keep saying in the media that the EU should be giving the UK a trade deal. No, we are now a sovereign independent country. The EU won't give us a trade deal. You know, we'll be giving them a trade deal as much as they'll be giving us one. And it's not something that we should be begging for. You know, we're a big country. You know, we could be trading with America, with Asia, with Australia and other countries and other continents. You know, we should be strong on this. And it makes absolutely no sense that, you know, the media keeps saying, we have to wait for the EU to give us a trade deal. Stupid. Stop saying that. But we were covering all this on a daily basis. As you know, we have a daily show at 5:45 p.m. We also have a daily vlog at 8 p.m. I want to apologize, especially to the members, for not doing the vlog for the past couple of days. I'm back tonight, so 8 p.m. we're going to have our vlog again. So if you want to become a member and support this channel, you can check out the link in the description or find the join button next to subscribe. Or you can just go on your browser and type in youtube.com/myitc/join. And as I mentioned, we are going to be having a lot more content, especially for the members. It's Sunday today, so I've already posted it in the community page for the members to submit their questions. We have a weekly Q&As with the members of the channel. So make sure you submit the questions if you're a member. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.